Hola, hola mis amores y bienvenidos de nuevo a mi canal Everyday Español. I'm Madison, and if you're new to my channel, this is Everyday Español, where I teach you Spanish that you can use in your everyday life, so that one day you can too master the Spanish language. In one of my previous videos, we talked about forming informal commands, so I figured let's add on to that topic and talk about formal commands. Mandatos formales using usted. So what are formal commands? Well, mandatos formales, formal commands, are used when we're trying to give instructions, advice, or orders to somebody in a more polite way. That means we're going to be using the usted form. Because if you think about it, if you're giving an order to somebody, it might not always, it's not like a mean thing, but sometimes if you're trying to be more formal, but you're directly telling somebody to do something, you're going to use mandatos formales. Before we dive into today's lesson, make sure you've downloaded the Unacademy app to practice these informal, usted, tu, formal, informal, all within the confines of the app. So make sure you download the Unacademy app to practice outside of these videos. Forming formal commands is actually pretty easy once you get the hang of it. So basically, to start, we're forming the subjunctive. Now, if you're like, what to the subjunctive? It's not that bad, I promise you. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to start with a verb. Let's start with the verb hablar, as I always do. We're going to take off that AR. We're going to conjugate it in the normal yo form. So, okay, hablo. Drop the O. Okay, so I'm left with habl. And then you switch the vowel. So if you're like, what do you mean switch the vowel? Well, it is an AR verb, right? So now, because we are commanding somebody to do something in a formal way, we have to switch the vowel so that it's no longer following the AR rules, but following the ER rules. So instead of habla, it would be hable with an E on the end. So there's a little rhyme that I learned when I was in school to help you remember this. So start with yo, the yo form, drop the O, switch the vowel, and there you go. That is how you form formal usted commands. And lucky enough, that's also how you form the subjunctive. So for verbs that end in AR, the ending would be an E or EN. And for verbs that end in ER or IR, the ending would be A or AN. AN for ustedes and A for usted. And just like that, you have the formal commands down. So why don't we practice these? Pretend that you were telling me to add salt to the dish. You're telling me add salt. It comes from the verb agregar. So I'm going to take off that AR. Okay, start with yo, the yo form. Okay, agrego, take away the O, switch the vowel, and there you go. Agregue la sal. If you're speaking to somebody in a more polite way or someone with more seniority than you, you would say, instead of agrega la sal, you would say instead, agregue la sal. All right, so we just looked at an AR. Let's look at the verb poner. So if you're telling me to set the table, use the verb poner, okay? So how would you use that in a formal way? So let's walk through the steps again. So we have the verb poner. So we need to conjugate it in its regular present tense yo form. This is so important, especially for this verb. So we're left with pongo, because it's irregular in the yo form. Drop the O, okay, so we're left with pong. Switch the vowel, so it's an ER verb, it's going to be an A. So it would be ponga la mesa. Ponga la mesa. That is how you would form it in the formal usted command. Now, this is so important. That's why I say you have to start with the yo, because those words that have irregular yo forms use that root in its formal usted commands. So that is why I used poner as a great example. You can't just be like, oh, I'll just make it pona. Can't say pona. Okay, you have to start with that yo, drop the O, and then switch the vowel. Are we doing okay? Start with yo, drop the O, switch the vowel. There you go. That is the best way, I think, to remember how to form these formal usted commands. Of course, we can't forget about the irregular verbs. There are irregular verbs, just as there are in most of the forms in Spanish. So let's dive in and look at these informal commands in the usted form. These are a list of just some of the irregular ones in the formal usted command. The first verb is ser, which means to be. In the formal command, you say sea. So if I want to say be kind, be nice, I would say, sea amable. Sea amable. Be nice. The next one is the verb ir. Are we really surprised here that ir is irregular? It always is. But if you want to use this in a formal usted command, you say vaya. Vaya. So if I'm trying to tell somebody to leave, but I'm trying to be a little bit more politeful, a little bit more polite about this, I would say, vaya, vaya. Go, leave. Our next irregular is the verb dar. To use this in a formal usted command, you would use de. Another one is the verb estar, because this one doesn't really follow the start with the yo form. We don't really do that at all with this one. It's irregular, hence the reason it's in the irregular part of this video. So if I wanted to use the verb estar in a formal command, I would say este, with an accent on that last E. So for example, if I want to say be happy, I would say esté feliz, esté feliz. And finally, our last one is the verb saber, which means to know. This one is very irregular, doesn't follow any of the rules whatsoever, but to use this one in the usted command, you would say sepa. You're going to want to memorize these because they don't follow the regular rules, but they are used so frequently. And like I said, the good thing about knowing formal commands is that it's the subjunctive. So if you learn them with this, and then later you come down the road to the subjunctive, you're like, oh, I already know how to do this because I know how to do formal commands. Let's take a break from this formality of the lesson and jump on our Unacademy app for a quick lesson. Okay, I drink lemonade and you. Translate to Spanish. Yo bebo una limonada y tú. Wonderful. Match the following. Con, with, to, you, la, the, si, yes. Okay. Translate. Where is my passport? ¿Dónde está mi pasaporte? Okay. What's in the image? Okay, it looks like either salt. It looks like a salt shaker. Sal. All right, now match the following with the pictures. Celular, teléfono, baño, salsa, niño, niño. Wonderful. Let's get back to our lesson on formal commands. Now let's use these and see these in context. This is going to be a ton of examples mixing irregular and regular formal commands. ¿Estás listo? Imagine you're in a formal setting showing someone respect that you might not know very well or somebody with more seniority than you. This is the scenario in which you would use these sentences. Hable más despacio, por favor. Speak slower, please. Coma más frutas y verduras. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Vaya a la oficina de principal. Go to the main office. So as you can see from these examples, the verb hablar, we used hable. The ending switched to the opposite ending. The word coma in the second one, it's an ER verb, but we switched it to coma to make it more formal. And then our last one, vaya, used an irregular form of the verb ir to say go to the office, vaya. Practice makes perfect. So get down those informal commands, and if you haven't watched that video, make sure you go check it out. But then get into these and start thinking about using them in different scenarios, when you would use formal and when you would use informal. The only way to get these down is practice, practice, practice. I know you guys can do it. Y eso es todo, mis amores. This is it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining Everyday Español conmigo, Profe Madison, and I hope you found this video helpful. And what I love about this topic is that it's kind of a double whammy. You get the informal command, or you get the formal commands, and then you also are learning the subjunctive at the same time without even super realizing it. So what are you guys waiting for? Hit that notification button, that little bell at the bottom, subscribe, and comment down below what more you'd like to see from this channel. I'm so happy to have you guys in mi comunidad. Make sure you share it to add more people to our comunidad. Adios.